Gail, please come up.
Gail Lavielle, 109 Hickory Hill. I am not going to address line items.
Thank you.
I don't get applause for that. No line items. However, I'm very interested by the comments that Devorah and Chris, Andy, and going back, Hal, a lot of people have made about the notion of checks and balances and where the power lies and what kind of form of government we have. Before I say anything, I would like to say that I have a deep and abiding appreciation of the town meeting form of government. I've lived out of the country for a long time. I've lived in other parts of this country, and nowhere have I ever seen the opportunity for citizens to provide input be so manifest and so accessible. So I am a very strong advocate of that, and I want to say that before I approach the point that I want to make. We've discussed a bit the notion of the reconvened town meeting and the authority that it has, and Bob was good enough to go through the actual process of what happens when the budget comes in, then it goes out, then it comes back in, and so on, and where it ends up. So I think I understood it properly. I have not read the general statutes. One reason I haven't is because I desperately tried to find the part that dealt with this, and it's just very difficult to go through those chapters. So I didn't find it. But my problem, or maybe it's just a question, with this part of the revised charter is not the revised charter, it's the original language. I think the notion of having the reconvened town meeting come and be able to increase a line item is something that bothers me. But the original language bothered me as well. And here it says, and I know you've all read it, but it's really short. This meeting may approve the reconsidered budget or amend one or more of the proposed appropriations, but may not reject it. I'm troubled by the meaning of the word reject, which appears in both the old and the new. I'll just say old and new as opposed to old and revised, or what current and revised. It appears in both. How broad is reject? How broad is adjust an appropriation? Where do the two intersect? What does that mean? How far can you go as a reconvened town meeting before you have not rejected or rejected the original budget? It is not clear to me from the language. Maybe the general statutes make it clear, so I concede that, but it is not clear to me on reading either version of this charter. The other thing that troubles me here, and maybe it's a question that you all can answer, is that, yes, the town meeting is there to represent the people. The people are supposed to have a certain amount of say and input. However, we do elect a certain number of people to be on our boards. And those people have a responsibility incumbent upon them to represent the entire town, which they do. I've never had any evidence that any of them didn't take that seriously. When the town meeting comes in to, let's say, give its final word and adjust a line item, up, down, sideways, whatever, the people who are there are representing themselves. Now, granted, they cared more than the people who didn't come out to do it, but they are only the people who are in the room and the other people that they can marshal. So whichever way they are taking the budget, they are not vested with the responsibility for representing the population. And even though I strongly support the form of the town meeting form of government, that lack of broad representation troubles me, and I don't like to see, there's something in me that just doesn't like to see the town meeting or what of it shows up be left with the last word on what happens to the town budget. The Board of Finance is elected. So whichever way it goes, maybe they should be asked to go back again and reconsider and to come back with something that everyone can vote on.
May I ask a question to clarify?
Yeah, go ahead.
There is a built-in bias at this point that says you cannot reject a budget the second time. I'm troubled by that, and I'm trying to determine what you are saying. Are you concerned that the populace, the voters, cannot reject the second budget, the reconvened budget?
No, I'm concerned that they can do too much. I'm not sure what reject means, Marilyn. That's part of
Well,
my problem.
that it's too,
It's pretty clear in my mind.
yeah, there are, you
Well,
know,
does that
many
mean the
towns,
total, or does that
many
mean?
towns,
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
The voters of the town can vote for the budget which is submitted to the town by the Board of Finance, or they can vote for the budget that is that budget as amended by those at the reconvened town meeting.
I understand that,
They
Paul.
don't have a
Thank you.
choice of doing anything else.
I
And
understand
if
that.
there are no
It's the
amendments-
process of amendment.
If there are no
How
amendments-
far that can
Robert's
go.
Rules of Order, basically, a motion is made. You
Yes, I know, yeah.
If there are no amendments, then the budget that, and this, first of all, presumes that it's been rejected once. It goes to the town meeting.
exactly.
It failed in the referendum because more than 15% turned out, and for either too high or too low reasons, they rejected the budget. So the Board of Finance comes back with another one. And this has happened, not in very recent years, but this has happened many times over the times that, since we've lived in town. And so at the second, which we call reconvened town meeting, if there are no amendments, that's it.
That's right.
There's no
But
chance.
I understood
No further
that.
changes.
But if there is, and if the reconvened town meeting has decided to make amendments, for example, to increase something broadly, or frankly to reduce it, then that can be voted on and that can be accepted right then and there.
No, it has to
Without-
go to a referendum.
Is there any further oversight by anyone who has been elected? To verify that and to go through it and
No,
to
whatever the
pronounce
amendment,
upon it?
whatever amendment is proposed would go to the referendum where the public has to show up and either accept what the Board of Finance submitted or approve the amendment.
Right,
And
so the
at that
public-
point, it takes 15% again. It's
But
another
the
one of
public is
these.
still voting between what the Board of Finance has come back and proposed and what the public has proposed.
Mm-hmm,
And it's that concept of voting on something that ultimately is just a concept that the public itself has proposed
see. You
that
would-
troubles me.
You'd like not to let the public
I
get their hands
think
on it.
there might be, well, no,
Yeah.
they can have the input.
Yeah.
But I'm troubled by the lack of further oversight on that particular proposal.
I guess the only oversight that might happen is the elected officials that understand the ramifications of it would try to get the people out to oppose an amendment if they think it's totally irresponsible.
Or even oppose an amendment that's proposed
Yeah.
before it's voted on.
Yeah, yeah.
The
This
elected
is-
officials will be at the reconvened town meeting to make their points well known.
Yeah, well, there is an
It's-
amendment that's passed at the meeting, and that causes it to go to a referendum.
Obviously, my questions show you that process is at any rate not clear to me from
No.
the language, but it's not because of the revised charter.
It's in the-
It's rooted in the
It's in the
original.
previous charter, which
Yes.
some of us had something to do with.
And so I'm
Thank you
just,
very
I,
much.
I feel that somehow there is a mechanism there that would allow, and I'll just call it the public, for lack of a better word,
The legislative
To-
body of the town.
to completely bypass oversight by the Board of Finance. So,
Yeah, and to
And
an
that
extent, that's
troubles
true
me.
in the previous charter.
yeah, exactly. So my My question would be, is it not worth a look again at the previous charter? And that's my concern.
Okay, good. We'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. I'm sorry it was a little convoluted, but it's a long, detailed explanation.
Well, there's a long history going back to 1962 of how or actually back to 1959 or previous to that. Alice Levin would remember because her husband was on that committee that did the great study of town government in 1957 and 58 and came up with the recommendation that the town should have a charter. And one of the results of that study, one of the recommendations in that study, number 3, as I remember on the list, was eliminate the Board of Finance.
It's a new perspective. Just while I'm up here, I do want to say thank you very, very much for your work. It's very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.